Hello, everyone. Welcome to the judge briefing for Glasgow Summer Cup 2024. Let me introduce the CI team so you're able to actually know what the face are behind the names that you'll see on Discord. And you know who's going to, made up the motions, made the pedals, and going to give clarifications when they've been asked. So we have Daniela, myself, Joller, and Erasmus. And we're the CS for Glasgow Summer Cup 2024. So I'm going to give you the judge briefing in this video, where I'm just going to talk a bit about the things that we want for you to do during deliberation. We're going to talk about how you should judge debate, and we're also going to talk about the new rule that we are implementing when it comes to POIs. So do please pay attention to that, because this is different than other tournaments. So please keep in mind that there is this new rule change that you need to enforce. So what do we expect of you? You have 15 minutes for deliberations, and this includes giving speaker points. So you should take the time to be able to discuss the speaker points, read out the bracket, ask if it applies, and just have a bit of a discussion whether the speaks apply, and then also use the full skill. So use the very low to very high at the moment they actually fit. Like, consider these different things, because again, the skill exists for a reason. Then you have, after the deliberation, 50 minutes in which you can give the OA. After that, what you should do is you should also give feedback to people if they ask. This can be done either in the Zoom call or on Discord or on Facebook or via Discord DMs, whatever way you prefer. But you should be trying to give feedback to people because, again, debate is also about approving. So at the moment you are a chair, it is your responsibility to lead and direct the discussion. And this also means that you need to include everyone. You might have a trainee, or you might have someone that you might disagree with, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't include them in the discussion and give them time and space to actually give their opinion and be heard out. Again, these people are giving up their time, sometimes their money, to actually judge and be here. So please, please, please also include these people so they can also improve. And they also just, should get the time of day. Another important thing is, you need to be on time. So you need to stay within those 15 minutes of deliberation. At some point, you might need to decide a vote. Decide to go for a vote. For example, in the opening half clash, if you can't come to a unanimous agreement. And then at the moment, you have 4 people, for example, voting, and 2 of them vote for OG, 2 of them vote for OO. You, as the chair, are going to be the tiebreaker, which means that if you voted for OG as chair, then OG wins. If you are the minority, so you have, for example, you're the only one voting for OG and the 3 other panelists vote for OO, then at that point, you suddenly lose, and then OO wins that clash. If you are a trainee, this is just because we have limited information on many judges, so we might have traineed you. This is not going to be the case for all rounds. It doesn't have to be the case for all rounds, and you might still break, so don't take this too harsh. This is just sadly a part of debating and judging, that we just don't know the skill level of every single judge. At the moment you are a trainee, you still participate in discussion, so you should also still be heard. You should also give your opinion on clashes. The only difference is that you don't get a vote, which means, again, that if you have to deciding, like in the opening half, who wins, you as a trainee do not get part of the vote, so you can vote on OG or OO. At the moment that you have done all of this and you've created the rankings, then the speaker points should reflect these placings. So the person who comes first, or like the team that comes first, should in total have the most speaks, and there's no low point wins. Okay, what do we then expect of you as a judge? So we do not want you to count arguments, or just say that they have more arguments in more clashes and therefore they are more relevant, and then therefore take it over another team. And do not give separate scores or high scores for things that are, stylistically nice or original if they don't add to the substance. So if there's a really good illustrative example and it's really stylistically explained, and that creates a lot of clarity, or otherwise it wouldn't, then of course you can give high speaker points. You can, give credit to that. But these are not things that are important in themselves. Just because someone spams out 5 arguments in opening opposition doesn't necessarily mean that they are winning, because they still need to prove everything that that is true, that is important, that there aren't any gaps in the argumentation, and that kind of stuff. So don't just count arguments, and don't just give speaker points for style and originality. It should also, as a judge, insist that teams engage with each other. And there is not a burden for teams to do line-by-line rebuttal or line-by-line engagement to what people said. especially if people, just say a lot and then you can't reasonably expect a speaker to discuss all the things that were said. However, they should, interact with teams and go at least for the core claims or the kind of points that overall the teams are going to try to get at. It's also important to note that sometimes engagement is done implicitly. So it might be that, for example, a team explains why people will not interact with the state in a specific way or what the incentives are for these people. And it's not linked that this interacts with other arguments, but it might mean that on the other side, some arguments about backlash might just not fully get their impact. And even if it might not be explicitly flagged or might not be explicitly stated as interactive with arguments, user judge should still be able to see that there's this logical train, which then means that the other argument from the other side does not work to the full extent or does not work. So do also be mindful of that. Just think about how things interact when they have been stated. You therefore should follow the logical flow of the debate. And the most important thing is just be comparative. So it's not just that one team is bad, it is that it is worse than other teams. So it's definitely possible for a bad speech to then take a first or a good speech to take a fourth. Because again, it's just comparative. Other teams might have just been better or been worse. So it's not just in a vacuum. Just consider, yes, they might be bad, but are they as bad, are they worse, or are they less worse than another speaker, for example? And also important to note, there's no such thing as an automatic fourth. Just because opening government does not bring a model or a team does not explain a comparative or like the alternative world, it doesn't mean that they should automatically get a fourth. It might be the case that someone else was, worse, or they were just still had good arguments. In that case, they should get the position just based on the argumentation. Okay, there's going to be some disagreement about what is true or what is important. If that's the case, they should try to follow this kind of like pyramid of intervention, where you try to intervene the least possible. So if teams explicitly agree that something is important or true, then you just deal with that because that's then what's stated in debate. So if everyone for some reason believes that the Democrats winning is the most important thing for the next election, then if that is agreed upon within debate, then you as a judge should then consider to what extent do teams prove that this will happen. Sometimes might also be implicitly. So maybe teams just implicitly make arguments about the economy or how things affect the economy. And then they don't really explicitly state this is the most important thing, but kind of like the logical train always works back to the economy. Then you could just say, they implicitly agree it's important. So other things maybe about principles, which maybe aren't as much explained, or that kind of stuff are not as important as this clash on the economy because everyone implicitly agrees that the economy is important. Sometimes people just don't agree, and then there's just a clash where it's like, no, the economy is more important, and other people's like, no, making sure Democrats stay in power is more important. If that's the case, then you should just consider what has a team successfully proven to me to be true and important. It's also important that here you can do a bit of a kind of like gut check in the sense that if a team has wildly unrealistic characterization or unrealistic explanation of how the world looks like, then you can penalize them for this at the moment you believe that the average informed voter has information about this. We'll get a bit into more later how this looks like. But especially when there's this disagreement, then some intervention is still allowed at the moment. It is reasonable, but overall it's the best to try to minimize your interaction. Let's say for some reason teams do not agree, not explicitly, not implicitly, and they don't even explain why something is more important or something is true, then it just really becomes very, very difficult. And then it's just that you as a judge should think about what would the average intelligent voter believe to be true or important. And again, here there might be some disagreements because people have different preconceptions of how the world works or what is important. And also here, then definitely something like a split or it's just very fair because again, people just might not agree on what the average informed voter actually believes because it's still quite of a vague concept. So this immediately gets me to the average informed voter. So overall, you do not have any specific knowledge. So you're not from a specific country, you don't have a specific profession, so you don't necessarily know a lot about the economy, you don't necessarily know a lot about Britain or Scotland, even though this is a Scottish online tournament. And it's important that you as a judge are willing to be persuaded. So maybe just because someone interprets emotion or interprets or makes an argument that you would not run or that you don't think is the strongest argument does not mean that the argument that they're bringing is not persuasive. You should keep an open mind and should actively try to understand what they're saying and if they are fulfilling the purpose and they're proving why it's important, why it is true. And also, you should try to be as non-interventionist as possible. Again, you can do a bit of a gut check. So, for example, we know that Labour has won the election in the UK. If someone says, conservatives have won, then you could just say, like, no, this is just not true. But overall, things are oftentimes within the debate, and characterizations also oftentimes within debate, to what extent something is true, to what extent something happens, all that kind of stuff. So try to just follow the debate as much as possible, and only when there's going to be like severe lies, then you should harshly punish it. Okay. Overall, you should have you should have the knowledge about like how the rules work. You should be able to understand complex concepts. So even though you might not completely understand economics, if someone explains to you how economics works, then you're able to understand it. And also, if someone gives you an example or gives you an empiric evidence, then you'll also be willing to be persuaded by this. Again, empirical evidence is not necessarily lesser than structural reasons or mechanisms for why something is true. Just think about the fact that the average informed voter, when you give them an example, can be convinced that something is true or that something is important. So this is also important. You should just be able to follow the debate in this kind of way. Okay, now let's come to the OA. You only have 50 minutes for the OA. So this is if you are a chair. This is normally given by chairs, but let's say the chair is ruled, and the chair has the option to ask a panelist to then give that either that clash or to give the part of the OA or part of the OA that are affected by it. And then the panelist has to give that OA. So what it should contain is just explanations, of course, about what people have said. Then you should just say, why does one team win over another? It's not just enough to say this is what the team said. You need to be comparative because, again, judging a debate is necessarily comparative. So you then should also explain what is it that makes one team win over another? What's the metric of weighing that you use? Just like, team X wins on Y, so on Y point over team Z because of these reasons. And yeah, you should just try to be as comparative as possible. And to a certain extent, you can give some advice for improvement. I would not go into extreme detail because, again, for personal feedback, you have a separate time slot, but also you still have 50 minutes. You can't do this for every single team. So just try to find a balance there. But also, yeah, and also what's important is you should submit the ballot, the online ballot, before the OA starts. And this is for chairs. And this should also be for the wings. So non-trainees should also be able to submit the ballot. And it's also important that you fill in feedback as a judge on your chair and also as a chair on your wings, because there are a lot of people that we do not know that are from very different circuits. So being able to understand where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, is very useful. And therefore, it's very nice if you're able to actually give us feedback. So let's quickly go over the last practical stuff, which is tech policy and new rules. So at the moment, someone is missing. If you're missing a panelist or trainee, they should tag them in someone is missing channel. You should just do introductions, then wait after that for maybe 2 minutes. And then if the trainee and panelist did not show up and we haven't told you that we're going to send a replacement, then you can just start the debate. So also keep your eye out on that, on that channel, on someone who's missing. If you are missing a chair, then other judges or teams should tag that in the someone is missing channel, and should then wait for a new chair to arrive, or you should wait for us to tell if one of the panelists is going to be becoming a chair. So you should wait for that, definitely, because again, there might be different panelists and you then don't know who should be the chair. So also just keep your eye out for that. This is also important. You should be doing this before the end of prep time, because teams and judges should go to the room, the specific breakout room, before the end of prep time, so that we can ensure that we don't get delays and that we're able to run on time. This also means that as a chair, you should tag teams in the someone is missing channel if they have not joined in time before the end of prep time. And the same for panelists and panelists and wings and trainees if they are missing a chair. So do keep an eye out on this. Okay, now the last thing, this is a new rule. So we already explained why engagement is important in holistic education, because just everything needs to be comparative. Therefore, we want to implement a new rule, which basically means that if a speaker does not take a POI, then instead of stop writing at 7 minutes, you then, 7 minute 15, you now should stop writing at 7 minutes. So you take away the 15 seconds of grace time in which normally a person would be able to end their speech, just finish the sentence, and that kind of stuff. If a speaker does request a POI, but hasn't been given or offered any, then of course the above rule doesn't apply, because again, it's a skill issue on the other side of the bench, not on the speaker, because the speaker wants to accept a POI. Also, this is a new rule. We will be flagging this in the speaker briefing. We'll be flagging this on Discord, but sometimes people don't read those or they gloss over them. So as a judge or chair, you should remind the speakers before you actually start with the speeches that this rule is being implemented. And there should also be a way that you're going to make clear that you're stopping to write. So you should maybe be raising your hands when you're not doing it, or type something in the chat that you're stopping writing, so they know that that you are following this rules and you are punishing them for not offering a POI. The previous rules for POIs also still applies. So let's say someone also doesn't take a POI, then you still should lower their speaker scores. And you should do this because, again, we want to create engagement. We want to give the opportunity for closing teams to engage with opening teams and the other way around, which is often the only way they can do that is via POIs. And also you should, in close calls, flip against a team that did not take any POIs or took less POIs or had less engagement. So these are the new rules. This is the overall tech policy. I hope everything is clear. If you have still any questions, you can either put them in the comments below, or you can actually put them in the Discord in the CA clarification or CA question channel, and then we'll answer them there. And then I'll see you this weekend. Bye.